welcome to the second edition of 4th&Goal, the podcast for all things fantasy football. I'm Keegan Kerr, speaking with Ryan Gilbo and a recently healthy Alex Badger, making his debut with the podcast. Welcome, Badge.
It's good to be back. You know, it was a tough week, but we're good now. We're good. We're here. We're ready. My team had a tough week too, but I'm ready to bounce back.
Just not a good week for Badger all around.
Cook so much I got the chub. Had a tough week, and so we'll work on that.
But all right, let's get into some talking points from last week. As always, as always, Patriots defense going off. They dropped 23 points. Let's see, 1 sack, 1 safety, 2 fumbles recovered, and 4 interceptions for the Pats defense. And Sam Darnold finished at negative 6.7 points. That's hard to do, if you were trying to get negative points.
Yeah, negative 6.7 is the type of point where you should probably stop playing football. That's just a personal choice. I think it's time to call in Luke Falk or whoever the backup is going to be, because at negative 6.7, that's just ridiculous. Some of those throws he was making were off his back foot, throwing into the wind, literally placing the ball into Stephon Gilmore's hands. So that was just tough. It was a great matchup for the Pats defense. And as much as I'd love to cheer for the Pats defense from a New England sports fan perspective, it's always tough watching the Pats defense completely obliterate the rest of the league. So,
but I think another good thing to talk about, Chase Edmunds, that was definitely shocking.
To all DJ owners in the league, I feel sorry for you. I was playing against DJ, so I was fine. I was happy. That's a tough one. They expected him to start. He got 1 carry for 2 yards on 2 snaps in the whole game. So,
what I was hearing was, I didn't look that much into it, but people were saying that it was he was questionable, and then it was he's active, and that said nothing about him being limited, and he got 2 snaps all game. And of course his backup Chase Edmunds. What did he have? Did he have 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns?
3 touchdowns, I believe.
3 touchdowns.
He had 27
and I mean, that's it's one thing if you start DJ and then he only plays 2 snaps, but it's an extra sting when the guy who's definitely worse than DJ on the same team puts up that many points, and you're just knowing if he was healthy, that would have been DJ's fault.
Speaking of 3 touchdown performances, Sony Michel and Marvin Jones both surprised. Around the league.
I felt like it was 2014 watching Marvin Jones catch touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. And I think, frankly, the people who were most mad about that were Kenny Golladay owners who were sitting there thinking that Kenny Golladay was going to have a big week, and then Marvin Jones just completely vultured every single ball that came out of Matthew Stafford's hands.
Kenny Golladay only had 1 catch for 21 yards, and Marvin Jones had, did he have 4 touchdowns?
He had, I believe 3. He had... Yes, that sounds about right. He had 10 catches, too. It wasn't like he was catching a ton of balls.
That's amazing.
But every ball he caught was a touchdown, which is huge.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a red zone threat. I mean, he had 10 catches for 93 yards and 4 touchdowns.
4 touchdowns.
Yeah, 43.3 PPR points. That's crazy.
Yep.
And I was thinking to myself, I don't think I've ever seen a stat line where a receiver has 3+ touchdowns and under 100 yards, which I thought was interesting, because he had 4 touchdowns and 93 yards. That's kind of an odd ratio.
Well, that's just the stylistic thing of Marvin Jones. Yeah. He's such a red zone threat that the catches he's getting aren't 60-yard Tyreek Hill bombs.
Right.
He's catching balls from within 5 yards and just going up for a fade and absolutely dominating the defender as he tries to get up there. So.
Speaking of dominating, Aaron Rodgers is so back after last week.
So hot right now.
He had 6 total. I think he had 5 passing, 1 rushing touchdown, and then over 400 yards. I don't think he had a pick or anything. It was just a perfect day for Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers is...
He had a perfect passer rating.
Perfect passer rating.
Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen in my life. I'm not going to lie to you. You watch him play, and it's just beautiful. And some of the passes he makes to guys whose names no one knows, with Davante Adams out and Geronimo Allison being out, these are guys that no one has ever heard of in our lives, and he's making them look like Pro Bowlers because he's just making these throws and dropping them into people's hands.
He's dropping dimes.
All right. Want to move on to some predictions from next week?
Sure. One player that I'm excited because he's on my team to say I think he's going to have a huge week is James Conner, because he is playing the Dolphins. Definitely, I think the Dolphins have established themselves as the worst team in football. Probably, I mean, record-wise they are, and then you watch them and it's painful to watch.
It looks unfortunate.
If I was a Dolphins fan, I would not watch them.
No, I would move to
James
Jacksonville.
Conner playing against the Dolphins, and what's also huge is I'm guessing the Steelers will have a pretty big lead. So once garbage time comes in and the Steelers just decide to run the ball every single play, that's just more points for James Conner. So I think he's gonna have a big day. One thing I do want to talk about before we completely move on from last week is Saquon's return. I was going to bring that up, but I forgot to. Saquon, I was, because it was a high ankle sprain, and there was that one point in the third quarter where he kind of re-aggravated it and was on the sideline for a little bit, so I could kind of tell he wasn't 100% healthy, but he had a good week. He had 72 yards and a touchdown. It was a very solid week. He was playing the Cardinals, which isn't the best defense, but it was a really solid week, especially returning. I think it's a little bit of a sigh of relief for Saquon owners because although it's not like he's played bad, he's just injured, but it's good to see him putting up numbers again.
Especially when that's your number one pick. A lot of times that number one pick means that the bottom of your team is not great, so bringing in guys that probably aren't the greatest backups for Saquon Barkley is always tough. Mm-hmm. So seeing him back on the field, this could be the perfect position for him to come back and maybe give those teams an opportunity to make a playoff push and get in the top 4 in their leagues.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Well, I have a few guys that I like for this week, upcoming week. I like T.Y. Hilton a lot. Jacoby Brissett has been balling.
Yes, he has.
For the Colts.
He's been playing great.
His it's not even on the ground too. It's been his throws.
Yep.
He's been dropping back in the pocket, throwing some dimes, and not even just to T.Y. He's been spreading it around. So Jacoby Brissett is a start in my opinion. T.Y. Hilton, of course, start. Another guy I like is Allen Robinson, who has been putting on some great performances in recent weeks. 10 catches he had this past week for 87 yards and a touchdown. And then 2 weeks before, because he had a bye week 6, he had 7 catches for 97 yards and 2 touchdowns. So even though Mitch Trubisky is struggling mightily, Allen Robinson is finding a way to get some fantasy production.
Personally for me, I've been looking down at the waiver wire, bunch of injuries out there, and so this could be super helpful. One guy, Jamaal Williams, played great last week. He had a touchdown, and that just frustrated Aaron Jones fans. But as Jamaal Williams gets a couple more touches, that could be huge for him. This is a guy that you kind of have to be more desperate for, but Valdez-Scantling on the Packers, if Davante Adams keeps being out, he had 2 receptions for 133 receiving yards last week.
233?
For 133 receiving yards. Yeah. And a touchdown, 21 points. He's a big, deep threat for them, and the way Rodgers is looking, that could be huge for your team.
And one thing I do want to bring up, because I haven't really been following him that much because I don't own him in any of my leagues, but I feel like Davante Adams has been pretty much almost a game time decision in a lot of his games, and it just hasn't played, and it's been like that for weeks straight. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure.
The thing about Davante Adams is he's playing with a foot injury, right? And what you look for in a lot of wide receivers is that quick first step to get off the line and get past a corner. And with that foot injury, it makes it very difficult for him to actually work. And so the way it feels is less important than the way it feels when he's actually moving and actually running. So that's why he becomes a game time decision a lot. But that also puts owners in a tough spot, right? Because you've got to have him on the bench and prepared. And especially if he's playing in some primetime games, that could cause some issues for fantasy owners.
Yeah, because I feel like as I kind of scout the league every week, in the beginning it's Davante Adams is projected, whatever amount of points. And then it's he doesn't play. I'm well, at the beginning of each week, ESPN always seems to think he's going to play this week and he doesn't, which I just thought was weird. But
Stephania Bell needs to get on that.
But, so that's definitely, that's tough for Davante owners. But let's get into some busts who we think is going to have a bad week.
So I'll start this off. I think the Chargers offense as a whole is going to, they're going through a tough phase.
That's the entire Chargers offense.
Well, I think
everybody.
Every single Charger.
I think
LaDainian Tomlinson in his retirement is going to have a bad week.
I think Keenan Allen in PPR has not gotten over 10.1 points in a month.
Really? Wow, I did not realize that.
And Melvin Gordon just, he had the fumble on the goal line, but he has just not been getting the carries or the attention that he thinks he deserves. But that's also partly due to Austin Eckler's performance. But Eckler had a good week last week. We'll see if he can keep it up. But the Chargers offense as a whole, I'm not liking this week.
The one hope for the Chargers offense is that they're playing the Bears defense, which normally would be a bad thing. But last week, coming off of a bye, they were playing our boy Teddy Two Glove and the New Orleans Saints, and they gave up 34 points. So there's
that could just be more of the Saints look amazing. And
the Saints are playing well, but it's still the Bears defense is not all it's heralded up to be. So I think at this point, that's the only hope for Chargers fans is that maybe Phillip Rivers in that awkward throwing motion has the game of his career and puts up a big game against the Bears. But I'm with you. I think that's definitely a bust.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Bears defense right now, and in the last 3 weeks they had, at Oakland, it was the London game, but technically at Oakland, they only had 3 points. They allowed 24. They got 3 fantasy points. They allowed 24 actual football points. Mm-hmm. Then they had a bye the next week, and then to the Saints at home, they allowed 34 points and scored 3 fantasy points. That's, for a defense that we definitely thought would be at least top 3, I feel like this season kind of raises a question mark for sure.
Yep.
Another bust that I have this week is David Johnson again. Even if he is, back and healthy, I think Chase Edmunds is going to get a lot of carries based off of his production last week.
Especially if they're trying to protect him. They'll probably ease David Johnson back into it. So even if he's fully active, be wary of how much Chase Edmunds is going to play. And if your backup is scoring 3 touchdowns,
right,
and the offense looks to be rolling pretty good, why force him back in there?
Very true. I think one last bust prediction was kind of a double bust prediction here. Odell Beckham Jr. and Nick Chubb. It's really nothing against them. It's just the Pats' defense is. Honestly, it's only been 7 weeks of the season, but this is looking like one of the best defenses. Of all time. Every single week, it's unbelievable.
They're giving up 9 points a game. 9.
Yeah, I don't want to jump the gun after only 7 weeks and start calling them the '85 Bears, but
it's like the 2013 Seahawks.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to watch a defense this good week in and week out.
And also, even just from a fantasy perspective, other than that first week against Pittsburgh where they gave up, or where they only had 7 points, they've had 35, 23, 28, and 23. And so far this season,
they're outscoring a number of running backs and wide receivers.
They've been over 24 times, and they're averaging 20.7 points per game.
That's quarterback numbers. That's literally his quarterback numbers.
They're averaging more than my quarterback.
So if you have any players playing the Pats defense,
be careful.
This goes on until they slow down. I'm saying every single week, no matter who is playing the Patriots.
In our league, Le'Veon Bell was set.
I'm gonna sit Nick Chubb this week.
Yeah.
That's where
even
we're
if
at.
You're as talented as Nick Chubb or OBJ, I'm sorry, but on that defense, I just don't think it's going to be.
Especially with Baker Mayfield.
That's very true. Yes. Baker Mayfield might have an extra bad week this week.
I don't even think that's a bust at this point because I think Baker's just expected to have bad weeks now.
He's gotten to that point where busts are merely impossible.
He is dangerously bad.
It's just his expectation levels.
Yeah. So we have a new award this week where we're going to try and talk about someone who's either going to be a massive boom or a massive bust, and we're going to dedicate this award to everyone's favorite Meadowland miracle, Deshaun Jackson. So for the Deshaun Jackson award this week, personally, I'm looking at the New Orleans Saints and Arizona, right? I'm looking at that game overall, and I think that's a super interesting game because it could quickly turn into a shootout, or it could be an absolute dud of a game. So I think my Deshaun Jackson award for this week is going to go to Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray could have an amazing week, or if the Saints defense really steps up and stops that run game with Chase Edmunds and David Johnson, Kyler Murray could have a really tough week.
Rookie QBs are, unpredictable. Daniel Jones just had a couple of great weeks and then a couple terrible weeks. So
what's also interesting about Kyler Murray from a fantasy perspective and not a real world football fantasy perspective is because he runs so much, he could have a quote bad game but still put up fantasy numbers because of how much he scrambles out of the pocket.
Yep.
And so that's one nice little shoulder to lean on, I guess, for Kyler Murray, as even if he's not throwing the ball well, you know he's going to get at least some rushing yards. So for a fantasy perspective, that could definitely add to the boom part of it. But yeah, this wraps it up for week 2. You guys got anything else?
No.
No?
All right. Thank you all for listening, and good luck this week in your games.
Yeah, let us know how they go.
Signing off.